Good morning. Hopefully, you guys all had a nice trading day yesterday. Obviously, the market it was kind of like select stuff going up yesterday. Obviously a bit like this AMD, but there was other stuff that was just not acting the best. Market's almost open at midnight in Australia. Well, at least you get to get everything done. Actually, market open at midnight in Australia isn't such a bad thing because let's just say it opens at midnight. You're only awake until about 2 o'clock in the morning. You execute your positions. You set your stop losses at low of day, or you set your stop loss at the low of the pivot, and then you just go to bed. And then you've got all day to go to your job, do whatever the heck you want. So, and then you don't go back to work on the stock market until 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, and get ready. Shaq, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. ALB was one that I actually noticed last night. Lithium name, smaller consolidation, obviously on the 60-minute chart. Kind of looks like a bit like a volatility contraction pattern on a smaller time frame. And then SQM as well on the daily with a little bit bigger of a consolidation. Yeah, the fiance loves her Tesla. She absolutely loves it. Gold is pretty unbelievable at the moment. You had a question. Oh yeah. Yeah, I still don't know what my percent per win is versus my percent loss. Yeah, I still don't know. My win I only know my win rate currently, which is 38%, but I don't know how far on average my winner goes versus my loser. And that's a damn good question. Let me see if I still can get some details on that. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I'd almost manually have to go through all my trades. Um, it just moves a little too slow. Could it be bouncing off the 50? Absolutely. It moves a little too slow for me to want to own it at this point. I mean, NVDL is probably the better option. Yeah, I definitely don't want to see this name fall apart, but the market continues to do an awesome job. Just when you think it's gonna, dip, um, it doesn't. It ends up coming right back. Here's a Friday's dip, and then even yesterday's dip. You thought, well, all right, that's starting to get a little rough, but nope, a bounce right back. It's unbelievable. How long does it take for market to take out that Friday's highs is anyone's guess. Yeah, I think Tesla looks really good. I still think Tesla looks great. I'm kind of looking for this thing to just take out 443, and then I will probably be adding some. Do I care about float or shares outstanding? So the smaller the float, the faster the thing can move, right? Obviously, you've heard the phrase low float stocks, right? Where there's not a lot of tradable float, and they can really move quickly. But nowadays they just make these leveraged ETFs. And if you thought maybe like the float on, and now again, Microsoft's float so big, it's slow. Nvidia's float so big, it's slow. It takes a lot of buying power or a lot of volume to move these things in any kind of meaningful way. So yeah, I do care about the float, but nowadays they make these 2x and 3x leveraged ETFs that even if the float is big, doesn't really matter. Yeah, Net is holding up well. CLS is another one that's holding up well. And in fact, it saw a new all time high, 285 today. That's just unbelievable. Yeah, this one, while the market was pulling back, was already pushing up. And I was just like, wait, what? I saw this thing yesterday. I almost couldn't believe it. And now here you are at 285 bucks. Solars are really starting to push nicely too. Obviously, FSLR, NXT are two that come to mind. Run is another one that kind of comes to mind. You're tracking CMCL? No, there's no setup here. Trades 10 million bucks a day and there's no base. Yeah, better as a pullback against an ascending moving average, but no base. I saw Dino the other day and it's acting really well considering how poorly crude is acting. Yeah, crude oil is acting very bad, and Dino looks really good. Too much volatility there for now. Also, it's such a slow mover. Bounce right off its high volume close from earnings. But I'm assuming ANET is getting very close to its own earnings. 11.4. No, we got about 3 weeks. About 3 weeks for its own earnings. Yeah, I just don't love it. It's kind of slow. It's kind of choppy. Like I would, go a little insane if this was the price action for the last 3 months. So SMR, I think the 55 trim was great. And it almost broke low of day. It depends. If this thing would have just cleanly broke prior day high, I also would have entered SMR. I think maybe just a touch aggressive on how much you trimmed it, but doesn't matter. This nasty move lower, it would have been no fun to be in. Yeah, Rambus isn't looking too bad. Yeah, it looks fine. A 620 setup is just basically on a smaller time frame when the 6 EMA crosses back above the 20 on a 5-minute chart. That's all it is. It's an entry tactic. It's not an actual daily setup. So I use that in conjunction with the bigger time frame to like find my key areas. And when a stock begins to reject or break above, break below, whatever, that's how you can get yourself situated in a stock with a defined level of risk. Very, very simple. Yeah, MU looks great. And of course, we're pushing out today. Fantastic. Yeah, I talked about this one in last night's watch list video where I would have been looking to potentially buy this as a little high type flag over prior day high, and MU's now gone. That's unfortunate. Yeah, STRL looks pretty good. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, thank you. UAMY short worked really well. And I had even better covers on this thing. So I covered it at like 1305, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. I covered it 1303. My profit factor is a 4, just under a 4. So yeah, I'm getting basically $4 for every $1 I lose. Yeah. Figma looks pretty decent. Don't know that I love this ugly down move the other day on Friday, but it looks fine. Looks pretty tight to me too. Yeah, I would be down to a third or less in Oklo and Hut, right? Because of the extension from the 50. When I set an alert on a stock and it triggers, but the stock has already moved past its ADR for the day, do I still buy? No. No, I do not. I don't ever buy something if it's moved more than its average daily range already. I don't care if it ends up pushing way more that same day. Over time, it's just not a good bet. And I'm looking at like, the 20-day average daily range. Crowd ZS, they're still a little bit sloppy. I do like the idea of ZS maybe over yesterday's highs. Let's say I'm 20% invested and I'm looking to ramp exposure. If you're looking to do, I don't know what you mean by looking to do 3x 6.5%. What cushion? I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but the way I do it is I just take it one position at a time, or I always say just take it one day at a time, meaning you're putting together your watch list every single day. If something triggers and you take it, is the market friendly? Because in a friendly environment, if you're focused on stocks and leading groups, the market is pushing those groups higher. So you're either buying pullbacks to our ascending moving averages, you're buying breakouts, you're buying high type flags, you're buying flat based breakouts, you're buying earnings gap ups, you're buying high volume closes. Like there's only so many setups out there. And if you're trading the right type of setup in the right type of environment and they're working, it means, again, you're trading the right type of setup for the environment you're in. So if you're doing that and you're doing it well, the market's rewarding you. I'll take a position, it starts to work. Then I take another, then I take another, then I take another. And that's because you're doing the right thing for the environment that you're in. Sometimes you might like to be a breakout buyer, but breakouts aren't working even in an uptrend. So then all of a sudden you start saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to start buying dips towards ascending moving averages. And that begins to work. So instead of being a breakout buyer where there's volatility near the pivot, dips to an ascending moving average are the thing that's working. And you're doing that well and you're being rewarded. Hence, you can put on more exposure. So that's kind of how I view it. It's either you're not seeing things well, the market's far too choppy, and that's about it. That's literally the only couple of reasons that you might be not trading well. So if the market's choppy, it's hard to get situated. And if you're not trading the right kind of setups for the environment you're in, it could also be fairly difficult. So it's a very resilient market. It is showing cracks, but the market doesn't seem to care because money's rotating. So while there is an A-Lab and there is a CRDO, there's also a Wells Fargo, which is at a new all-time high, and then there's also a Morgan Stanley, which hit a new all-time high yesterday. So there's and then there's other groups that are coming to life, right? There's and this also had a really nice base, a pharmaceutical or biotech, Rhythm was one. So it's like you're seeing this, and then you're also seeing solar continuing to act well. Look no further than First Solar. So there is supportive action going on in other places of the market. No, I like to trim. Do I always wait for 7 ATR to trim? No, I look for a 3 to 5 day push, and that's where my first trim occurs, and that's never at 7 ATR from the 50. Yeah, if I get a 20% move in a day, I trim some, even on the short side, right? So I got short UAMY, and yesterday it was down like 24%. I'm not holding on to the whole thing. I'm covering some into this weakness. And I apparently did a really nice job, 1303 covering some UAMY right down here. So yeah, if you get a 20% move, like even to the upside on the same day, treat yourself, even if it's on, 10%, 20% of your position. Am I inclined to buy Amazon off of the 200? Maybe, but not really. It would be like AMZU for one, watching what Amazon's doing, but no, not really. Not necessarily. TEM's a little too choppy, but still hanging in there pretty well. Yeah, this isn't terrible looking. Open Door, nah, can't do it. Snowflake, oh wow. The hell happened here in Snowflake? There had to have been some news this morning. Company announced a partnership to integrate its AI data cloud with Palantir Foundry and Palantir Artificial Intelligence Program. That's weird because they basically do the same thing. It's just the user interface for Palantir is apparently a bit better. Tesla's fairly interesting too. I like Tesla. I'm already in Tesla, so break of Friday's highs. What do I think of yesterday's candle in OUST? I mean, not really something that I would have chased. Like I wouldn't have chased this gap up after this already big move. Kind of reminds me of what AMSC did. So you get this very big move the day before, you gap up a little bit, and then you just sell off. OUST's candle was even bigger. I don't really make anything of it. It's an all-time closing high yesterday, despite it being a red candle. It closed green, an all-time closing high. For now, OUST looks great. Yeah, Oracle, not bad. We'll see what happens if it could take out yesterday's highs. I actually think this pivot here looks pretty good, like a little low cheat setup. I wouldn't just add net for the sake of adding net. I'd wait for the breakout, right? There's not a lot of supply in that chart, so just wait for it to break out. Yeah, Dave, nice job reclaiming all key moving averages. But again, just going to kind of wait for this to take out its flat pivot. We'll see. Roblox. Yeah, the fact this thing hasn't died as well. We will see. CoreWeave, I like. One of these points, this thing's got to get going, right? I don't know that this thing can get a whole lot tighter. Yeah, I had this thing at like 135 bucks and I closed it at the end of the day because it was acting fairly weak, and then it gapped up and I didn't chase it, and then of course it was rolling over, and then I was off the desk in the afternoon. So, and now we're gapping up. So they're making these things pretty difficult. I don't really have like a minimum of float that I would trade, because as long as it's got enough dollar volume going through it, then that's all that matters. Is heat map for swing trading overkill? I don't know what heat map for swing trading is. It looks very nice. Let it push. It's too slow. 2% per day. It's too slow. No, I'm looking for longs. Like I mentioned, if Tesla could take out Friday's highs, I would add. I'm in a bull market. I'm continuously looking for longs, but I believe that there are opportune shorts to be had as well, right? I still thought the metals, for instance, as I mentioned, UAMY, you get 6 gap ups, 7 gap ups in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Another one. You get all these little gap ups overnight in a row on a big pickup in volume, right? That's signaling exhaustion. And then, I got short on the 14th, and then the day after, 20% down day. Like, I think that there's great opportunities on both sides of the market. Again, it might be a little bit choppy to get in on the long side, but that doesn't mean that there aren't longs. BMNR breaks out of this big base today. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Might take a few days. I like the way Celsius is holding up. Got to give Celsius a little bit of credit. And it's not like the other beverage stocks are doing well at all. And that's kind of the only problem I have with Celsius, is the other stocks in the group act kind of poor. Rambus looks fine. I don't think it looks great. Yeah, AMD, that 225 level looked really, really good yesterday. Really good. Is CoreWeave ready? Yeah, CoreWeave does. I mean, it's got to get going soon. No, I am already trimmed. I'm out half of my original Tesla position already. No, I wasn't day trading 620 setups ever. I look at when I say things are crowded, long or short, that's due to positioning. But we don't know exactly what that looks like ever since the government shut down because the CFTC is not working. MU was a little bit extended, but I thought it looked like a really nice high type flag. And what other name within this group had a high type flag and also went on to work? The answer quickly is SNDK. Right? You make a really big move up, you put in a high type flag, and then you break out with barely any stress on a pickup in volume, and now you're gapping up more overnight. That's like MU. You make a really nice move, you give a nice high type flag, and then you break out even more. So, yeah, while it's a little bit extended, it's been working in this market. So, I thought Hims was nice over 60, but too extended yesterday for me to buy it at 60. Obviously, once it broke that $60 level, you think anybody else was watching this thing? Look at the volume that came into this. Am I prepared to add Rocket Lab in the next couple of days? Yeah, it would take about a week. It would take about 5 days. Tighten up. I'm hopeful it just, stays above, what is that, Monday's high or Tuesday's high? It did. Nvidia still closed over the 50. Yeah, SoFi's tightening up, but for me, it's just going to need over Friday's highs. I don't really want to see charts trading below that, that nasty down day. I want to see charts kind of reclaim that level and trading back out above. Any new positions yesterday? I tried adding to GEV, and I got stopped out right away. I tried adding to it when it was taking out prior day high. It took my loss at low of day, and then I cut the last of my position because I had shares from 617. I cut it like at 623 or something like that. Yeah, I'm not messing with this. I want less volatility, man. And that's not what we're getting at the moment. Reddit does look good on the short side. We'll see if this thing actually ends up breaking down or if we want to revisit, the declining 20 or the declining 50 soon. And then, happy to take it on the short side. Yeah, IONQ is also the weakest of the quantums, and that's probably because of the $2 billion offering they got going on. I don't know that I would look to add. And part of the reason that I don't know that I would look to add is because of how extended Oklo is. If Oklo begins to come down, I think NNE and SMR might not do all that great. So that's just kind of my thinking. I would just hold on to what you have personally, if it were me. I'll execute like the maximum, like 3 positions in a day. It's very rare that I'd execute more, and it's actually not that crazy executing my dollar amount when I execute because I trade names that are very liquid, right? Like if I want to take call it like a $2 million position in Tesla, it's very easy to buy, 5 or 6 or 7,000 shares depending on price, right? Like when I first bought Tesla at around 360, I bought it in 2 pieces. It's not very difficult to buy 4,000 shares in that thing. One click of the button, right? It's not like I'm executing. Now it'd be different if I were maybe executing $20 million positions, $50 million positions. And, there are people out there who do. So that's not me yet. Hopefully it will be one day and I'll have another problem on my hands. But executing like $1 million and $2 million positions, it's not very difficult, especially if you're trading things that are liquid. It's just one click of the button in most cases. Yeah, I don't see the reason to buy BMNR at all. I don't know why you also happen to like BMNR. I noticed that it's tight, and that's fine and all, but it's also Ethereum's not doing anything. So, I mean, yeah, could it be a bounce off the 50 and you take out prior day high? Fine, but I don't like it. I'd rather own ETHU, and I've been saying that for 2 months now. What do I think of PL? These little high type flags have been working in this market, but I don't know. The better entry was off of earnings. I do. They're not called episodic pivot setups. I think you need to get that phrase out of your mind. I know Pradeep likes to call them EPs, but EPs are when news comes out for a company that like changes their trajectory sometimes for years on end or a year, whatever it is. Earnings gap ups, they're just earnings gap ups. You know, episodic pivots are like a term used. Not every gap up is an EP. Just because it gaps up on earnings does not make it an EP. And I do trade them. If the market is showing that you can buy an earnings gap up and you get follow through, I like to buy 5-minute opening range breaks on names just like this one. Or a break of after hours high if it was trading enough volume. Yeah, so I don't love to, but when the market is showing that these work, yeah, I'm happy to. Unfortunately, right? That's what the market's showing, right? It's a little bit of an extended high type flag, but they're working, which is the only reason why I had MU on the watch list last night. Yeah, I focus a lot on the daily chart, and that kind of helps paint the picture of what's actually going on within the stock. Yeah, I was in TNA a whole lot lower, and I just could never really stay in it. The simple base breakout presents too much risk when applied to high ADR stocks. I don't think that's totally true. But there's volatility around the pivot. But if you understand a simple base breakout, there's usually like a little load sheet setup associated with that. Yeah, Hims was a setup yesterday. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the desk to take it, nor would I have really taken it over 60. It had already moved too much. Yeah, KTOS could be a bounce at the 20-day. Could be. Are you asking how would it be? Very simple. It's trying to bounce off the 20. If the market's pushing up well, you just buy yourself a 620 setup, near the lows, or you could wait for it to take out prior day highs, and then you're just risking off of the day's lows where you buy it. What minimum average true range from entry would you trim? No, I really just look for a 3 to 5 day push. Some stocks it's move a little bit slower and faster than others. So I would say like if a stock moves 4% and then you get like a 10% move from your average by like day 3 or 4 or 5, then I would trim some off like a third. It really like people ask me that all the time. The reality is how is your stock acting versus the market? That's so important. Yes, I did trade UAMY short live in the Discord. I did. I tend to share all my trades in real time. Yeah, I don't know that I would call CoreWeave perfect, but it's not bad. It's getting very tight here. I would add Tesla over Friday's highs. That's the only way. It depends where you own FSLR. I know people that own FSLR from 200. So, will it hold for them? Maybe. Too extended. Inno data is too extended. Too extended, wide and loose. I don't use anchored VWAP. Nah, I mean, I don't know. It's Etsy, man. It's Etsy. Like, look at this daily here. Look at this price action for a while. This looks like, nah. No, level 2 order flow. I use level 2 sometimes for my entries, but I don't use a heat map for order flow. Is AMD ready for a high volume close today? No, this isn't a high volume close setup. I just thought the entry was 225 yesterday. Yeah, MNST is near highs. That's the other beverage name that's actually working well along with Celsius. Schwab is too slow. Yeah, but it does. And they posted earnings today. So they're back above the 50. I mean, it's fine, but just far too slow. Dell's not bad. Dell's another one that looks pretty decent. Yeah, HIMS is super resilient. I mean, this is a big base as well. Tons of bad news, and this thing has not gone away. Does account size matter to make a living? Yeah, it does. Obviously, the more you have, the more you can make per trade. But I wouldn't think about that if you're like a newer trader. Like, focus on your process, focus on, doing things the right way. Treat this as a long-term career, and eventually you'll be making tons of money. What made me trim Tesla? Oh, nothing but this gigantic bearish engulfing bar at 338. I watched it go to like 475 or almost 480 in pre-market, and giving back a shitload of money. That's what made me trim it. No, I don't really like SMCI. I mean, it's fine, but this is, kind of a disgusting chart. No, there's no setup in MLYS. Nothing. I mean, if you're in from 41, nice job. But there's nothing really there. Nothing there. And nothing there. Trades $8 million a day. How are SMR and Oklo related? Do you know what both of them do? They're both related. They're nuclear adjacent. Small modular reactors and things to do with the nuclear space. Yeah, MMYT. It's a bit slow, but yeah, this is a short. This is a short. A little bit like SFM kind of reminds me of. Right? You build a base, you start to break below that, and then you kind of just unwinding. You build a base, you get below the 200, and then you start unwinding. Looks very similar. Yeah, Walmart 2 days ago. Yeah, I thought AOI was showing some nice resilience yesterday. Yeah, not bad. No, Baba needs to tighten up all over again. Brian, I'll mention this one more time. A 620 setup is just a 5-minute entry tactic where the 6 EMA crosses back above the 20, but I use it in conjunction with key daily levels or areas on the daily chart, and then I zoom in on a 5-minute chart for my entry. Yeah, no, I can't buy Baba yet. Wide and loose, wide and loose. And it likes to gap. Too many gaps. Yeah, AMAT, not bad. AMAT, not bad. SKYT is not terrible. A little, no, it's not really even extended. Yeah, I just let my positions work. And in some cases, I use the 50, like ARC. I don't really care what the market's doing so long as we're above the 50 simple moving average. Yeah, there's no setup on SSRM here, unfortunately. It looks like you could have got it yesterday, maybe. Yeah, LIT doesn't look too bad either. Omer, all-time high volume. Wasn't this like a runner yesterday? Yeah, there's nothing here yet, but yeah. TSSI, no, I think I've talked about this one before. Like, where's the strength? Nowhere. I've been talking about, I get asked about this one like all the time on stream, and my answer is the same. This price action sucks. Right? And I liked it for a short up here. This price action is just terrible. I'm not going to be chasing gap ups. We close at 219. I'm not going to be chasing a gap up that's running into the 20-day on STX. I'm not going to be trading SBET either or BMNR. I would rather own ETHU. It was, but the market was showing that these things were working. I was personally hoping for a little bit more sideways, but yeah, this thing still looked really good. Still looked really good. Fernando, I don't know exactly what you're asking, but I did cover some UAMY yesterday. I don't know that I want to really short BE. I'm not sure. No, I don't track any of that, man. Look, the only thing I personally care about, and the reason I don't track it is because I don't normally share it, right? Like I'll share my finished trades, but I don't go through and pen and paper how many of them were 20, 30, and 50% winners because it just doesn't matter. At the end of every month, typically, and at the end of every quarter and year, I'm making money. So that's the most important statistic that there is of all, right? Am I able to buy my home? Am I able to pay for my car? Am I able to put food on my table? Like, obviously the answer is yes. I've done well for myself, but the my portfolio's equity curve keeps going up, and that's because I'm doing the right thing. I don't need to know the nuances about it and what stocks did it and what it doesn't matter. Like for me, I feel like I'm that that horse on the racetrack, and it's always about the next trade, what the market's telling me to do, the next opportunity. Like if I take a really, really small paper cut loss on something, um, I just get it out of my mind and I stop thinking about it quickly. If a stock pays me really well, and goes on like this, 70-80% move in 5 days, like Oklo or whatever it was, right? I don't just like write it down and celebrate it, or like put any extra special emphasis on that it happened, or like I'll remember why it happened in my mind, but I don't really track any of that stuff. It's just a bit irrelevant to what's next, right? I still have money in my portfolio that I need to get to work. So I track my trades as much as I track them so I can review them. But ultimately, I don't look at, how much they move. I look at my profit factor, which again doesn't really matter to me. I look at my average win in dollar amount and my average loss, and I look at my win rate. And those are about the only things that I care about. Obviously, the date and how much I might have made or lost on a specific trade, how much size I had, but I don't really go too deep into any of the details, like how much percent I won or lost. Although I could easily look at that. Um, Not something that I think about. Yeah, I appreciate that. You've been following me since Cam the Man's Room. Yeah, I talked about this quite a bit, man. It was just environment, and I was day trading like crazy. So I was just trading sympathy plays. So as like, and I've said this before, when GME was running, I mean, I was long AMC in the $2 range before it ever started moving. So my job was always like to find the next mover. So like I remember one of my biggest day trading days, SPI went from like $1 to 46, and I didn't trade SPI that day at all. But what did I do? I went and found Sun W. I was loading up at like 80 cents, 85 cents, 90 cents, a dollar, and then I watched it go to 4 on the same day. So I just traded sympathy plays a ton. Same thing when you had TCAT. I was just trading DLPN. Or when you would have LEDS moving, I was trading MOSY and WISA. And that was it. I was just scalping the hell out of the market. But you really can't do that now. I mean, you can, but without the same kind of success. But I appreciate it, man. That's cool that you've been kind of following along since Cam's room. Oh yeah, yeah. So I literally share exactly when I'm taking my entry in real time, and I share exactly when I'm covering some in real time. So yes, and there's a screen share all day long that I'm at the desk. So I'm officially out half of my Tesla. Half of my shares are gone. Sloppy base, but it's hanging in there. Sloppy base. No, I am in People Wish Discord. He's actually a great friend of mine. We actually started that room together. But no, I've got my own room. So, and he's a great friend of mine. He's actually, the one of the best men. I call him best man. He's one of the groomsmen at my wedding. So we're very, very close, him and I. But no, he's got his own room, and then I live stream in my own as well. There's just too many chefs in that kitchen, if that makes sense. But he's awesome, honestly. One of my best friend. He's one of my best friends out there. Such a good dude. One of one. Yeah, I appreciate that, John. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being there. Do I ever plan on joining the USIC? The answer is no plans to do it just now. And I'll tell you why. So there's a lot of people who trade like with a $1 million account, and then they're in like that same bracket as you are. And then like now with what I'm trading with, which is completely irrelevant to everybody, I'm not going to make the same percent return as somebody trading with just $1 million. So it kind of like distorts it. Now, there are people who can make 100% a year on their $1 million. That's great. They can make 200% a year on their $1 million. That's awesome. It's incredible. But with my portfolio, I can make 40%, 30%, and I'm going to make much more than that person who doubled their portfolio with $1 million. So it's like kind of distorted. And yeah, it's tough, right? It's tough like to really climb up those leaderboards and make 100% on my account every year. So I just won't do it. Like maybe I will do one for a smaller account one day, and trade it aggressively. But yeah, I just don't care to do it. I'm already very transparent, within my own community or, friends and family. I mean, with you guys, I feel like I share all day long. So I'm not planning to write a book. So if I were planning on writing a book, then you could be like, yeah, I won the USIC, but I really don't care. Am I native of the United States? Yeah, man, I was born in Chicago. Born and raised on the playgrounds where I spend most of my days. I just tried to do that Will Smith thing. Oh, man, I'm ridiculous. All right, guys, with love, I got to get out of here. Hopefully you guys crush it today. I plan on just being a little bit more cautious. There are some names like Tesla that I want to see take out Friday's highs. If it can do that, I'm in there. If it cannot, then I'm sitting on the sidelines. But just taking it one day at a time. Like I said, I'm trying to get positioned. And if the market gives me some opportunities to short, I will do just that. You guys have a sweet rest of your day, and I will see you guys bright and early for the end of the week. Cheers, guys.